Throne of Eldraine is going to have 3 Planeswalkers in it. We know 2 of them are the Kenrith twins. Well, the third is Oko the Fae, and that's who we're here to talk about today. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. We are here today to talk about Oko the Planeswalker. Now again, because of the nature of the internet, I feel the need to point out that this video is going to be a spoiler video, but it doesn't have magic cards in it. Now I know that makes some of you upset. You lose your minds and you go down to the comment section and go, "Where's the card? Oh my God!" Well, to me, that's like if I made a video saying, "Hey, this video is about breakfast." And then you come along and go, "You're eating bacon. Where's the cereal I expected?" This is a different kind of spoiler video where story elements get spoiled. But by all means, I know that mentioning it isn't going to stop you, but I can't help myself. Anyhow, let's move on. So Oko is a Fae. Now, what's going to happen is some people are going to think that he is a fairy planeswalker, and in fact, that's how I had originally positioned it myself in the previous spoiler video where we talked about this and him enslaving Garruk and all of that. But it turns out he is a Fae, and there is a difference between fairy and Fae. Fairies tend to be the little winged creatures that we are accustomed to, whereas Fae is best thought of as an outsider or something otherworldly. So Oko is a full-sized humanoid. He's not a little fairy-type individual with wings. And there was something released today specifically over on Forbes' website of all things. Isn't Forbes supposed to be a financial website? Anyhow, they, for some weird reason, have a really interesting article about the flavor behind Oko where they got to ask a number of questions. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through that interview, and I'm going to intersperse more details from what I've also learned reading an excerpt from the upcoming Throne of Eldraine novel. And we will combine that all together to give us the fullest picture of Oko that we can have at this moment. So let us dive into that right now, my friends. Starting out with the article, it's called Exclusive, Meet Oko, the Magic the Gathering Multiverse's newest Planeswalker. Now, the article starts out, the 82nd Magic the Gathering expansion set, Throne of Eldraine, will be released on October 4th, themed around Grimm's fairy tales and the Arthurian legend of Camelot. This set will introduce players to a new fantasy world and its denizens. On Wednesday, for the first time, obviously that's today, we get to meet one of the Planeswalkers who is spending time in Eldraine. The illustrious Oko is a Fae shapeshifter who is as charismatic as he is conceited. A man who is mysterious, clever, and vain. And you can see this in the image that I have placed up on the screen. You can see him standing there with his head tilted, looking, honestly, when you look at him, especially in both pictures, he makes me think of a combination between a Korean like K-pop singer and an 80s hairband dude. And you will see that even more when we look at the second image later on that shows him in his tight leather pants where you're like, oh lordy, nothing is left to the imagination. But right now, you can see from the image here that Oko is mainly white, but he has this blue tinge to his skin that is prominent at the tip of his ears, along the top of his face, almost looking like a bandit's mask. You can see that there the blue actually starts partway up his forearms and goes all the way to the tips of his hands. He has a very thorn-themed getup. He is a vain individual, and he has themed a lot of things around himself with that thorn concept. You can see the crown of thorns that he is wearing tilted to the side, and this is partially, I think, a reflection of his perspective on nobility, where he considers himself noble, but without that sort of regal, I have to have myself presented in a particular regal manner. Now, he is particular about his appearance. You can see that in how the thorn manifestations is represented in his crown. It's represented in the fingertip weaponry that he has, or perhaps that's just for aesthetics. You can see thorns actually sprouting up all along his shoulder pads as well. And the thorns are covered with bloody tips as well. But he has a very particular look about him. You can tell he cares about it. He has that nature aligned sort of like raven and thorn looks with the feathers going on. Now, I like the little blue motes of energy that are floating around him. It gives him that otherworldly feel, and also, you know, ties into the fact that he can actually wield magic. Now, that's enough discussion about how he looks for now. We'll dive in to the actual meat of the article. So, it says that Oko, the illustrious Oko, is a Fae shapeshifter who is as charismatic as he is conceited. A man who is mysterious, clever, and vain. Oko's story will be revealed in detail in the first Throne of Eldraine ebook, which is called The Wildered Quest. But today we're getting a sneak preview of his life and personality. And for me, I absolutely love stuff like this. I love getting into the flavor of Magic the Gathering. So in order to get to know Oko a little better and to figure out where he belongs, oh, forget the Planeswalker Dateability chart. That sounds so stupid. I interviewed Nick Kelman, head of story and entertainment at Wizards of the Coast, who is one of the writers responsible for bringing his character to life. So here is the Q&A to help you get to know the enigmatic Oko. So it says, Oko got his spark when his captors tried to suppress his shapeshifting. Can you tell me more about that? What did it feel like for Oko? Oko is from a plane ruled by Fae who believe in a unified society. One where the ruling class has decided that for the betterment of all, the natural mischievousness of the Fae has to be suppressed. To the ruling class, they had created a perfect society. But for Oko, who was born with incredibly powerful shapeshifting abilities, this culture went against everything he was and contradicted his deepest, truest self. You don't understand me, Dad! So, continuing onwards, styling himself as a speaker of truth, Oko felt he had a mirror to the hypocrisy of his world. The ruling class did not quite see it this way. They subjected him to magical procedures intended to suppress his powers, but only succeeded in igniting his spark. We can imagine this was a terrible experience for him, and one that would make it almost impossible for him to trust anyone again, especially those in positions of authority. Now, there's actually a lot to unpack from this particular answer. One, I do want to point out for people who don't know this, Oko is not a native of Eldraine. So when we talk about the Fae and their particular state of ordered society, that is not on Eldraine. And we know this because when we read the Wildered Quest article, the Wildered Quest book, we will see that Oko is actually on Eldraine. He doesn't even know the name of the plane yet. He is wandering through a forest on this plane of existence when he is ambushed by Garruk. So at this point, we know he is not from this place. He is not from Eldraine. He is from another world where we have Fae that are most likely white Blue Fae. And they have a very Harrison Bergeron sort of effect going on in their world. If you guys haven't read or heard of Harrison Bergeron, it's a very interesting story where you have kind of a dystopian society where everybody is brought down to a certain level to try and maintain societal harmony. So if you are beautiful, you're forced to wear a mask that makes you average looking. If you happen to be really smart, they will actually put something on your head that disrupts your brainwaves to make you less intelligent, less functional, so you fit in more with everyone else. Everybody who stands out and is special, what makes them special is taken away. Ballerinas have weights attached to their body to make them less graceful and more ungainly. So this sort of forcing everybody into the same path is what's going on with the Fae on this other world. And I imagine these otherworldly Fae are white-blue aligned because white order enforcement through magic, order enforcement through magic definitely feels like a highly white sort of setup. Now, another thing to note is that he doesn't trust royalty, right? He doesn't trust the ruling class, but I believe he actually was born into the ruling class, into the nobility. Because when Oko uses his mind magic to control Garruk, he dives into Garruk's mind, and sees that Garruk is mourning for the loss of his father. And Oko dismisses that as pure foolishness because he says it's a given that your father will betray you. So he has father issues. He was clearly betrayed by his father, and it either means that his father was part of the ruling class that forced him into the ritual where they tried to take away what makes him special, or his father turned him over to the royals and allowed that to happen. But I currently believe that he is part of the nobility, and part of what makes me think that is the tilted crown that he wears, where he accepts his nobility to a degree and wants to showcase it to people because of his vanity, but at the same time, he despises nobles and rule-bound tyrants, as he calls them in the story. Honestly, the story coming up for Throne of Eldraine, the book, seems like it's going to be very, very solid. So we also know from this answer that he didn't lose his spark when his life was in danger. Most Planeswalker sparks ignite when their life is in danger. In this case, it was more Oko's sense of identity that was in danger. His plane-shifting abilities, his shape-shifting abilities were too strong. And as a result, when they were trying to basically strip him of these shape-shifting powers, it ignited his dormant spark, and he was able to either escape or turn the tables on them. It seems like instead of planeswalking away right away, he might have actually used his magic to take out the people, or at least inflict some kind of punishment on the people who were trying to bottle this power up within him, which is very interesting. So we have someone with a high level of vanity who does not trust any sort of authority figures, and that is echoed in the book. The next question that is asked, speaking of shapeshifting, what's the most interesting shapeshift he's done? Alternate question, any good shapeshifting pranks he's pulled? Now, keep in mind, this answer is going to be more based on shapeshifting pranks and maneuvers as opposed to the most interesting shapeshift he's done. So the answer is, Oko seeks out hypocrisy wherever he finds it, but by his own definition, which often leads to quite cruel pranks, and pranks are in quotations. Ruining a wedding day, stealing the spotlight at someone's lifetime moment of triumph, fooling a mother into believing her child has returned from a conflict. These are all great shape-shifting jokes to Oko, who sees nothing as sacred, least of all the most noble of emotions. After being turned on by his own people, betrayed by his father, and having to leave his own homeworld, he basically places no stock in what other people put value in, and in fact takes great pleasure in denigrating those moments. The idea that he would shapeshift into somebody's child who was taken away in a conflict, this child is gone and not coming back, and Oko shows up in their form to mess with the mother, that is incredibly cruel. So, I mean, that shows the black aspect of Oko's personality, right? Because we have the black, the blue, and the green, and they're represented by different things. So, can Oko shapeshift into other people, specifically other planeswalkers? Answer, he absolutely can. Which planeswalker does he get along with best? Answer, he generally tries to avoid revealing himself to other planeswalkers, but I can imagine he would get along well with Chandra if he didn't have such a mean streak. So he's playful and kind of capricious like Chandra is, but he's mean as well. He's just too vicious to really get along with Chandra. In Oko's opinion, what's the best part about being a planeswalker? Never having to deal with the consequences of your actions if you don't want to. Now that is pretty crazy. He can just leave whatever plane of existence. He can just be like, boom, I'm out of here. He never has to deal with the results of what he's chosen to do. As a result, it seems to me like Oko is somewhat of a child in a man's body. He has not become a full adult. He is broken from what was done to him. And as a result, he wishes to inflict mental pain on other individuals, but only in some ways, because there's actually a contradiction to him just wanting to inflict mental pain on people when it comes to him taking mentally over Garruk. He doesn't like using mentally dominating magic. So he's perfectly fine with shape-shifting and using his shape-shifting abilities to cause havoc and make people think things that aren't true, and he doesn't care if it makes people hurt or feel bad. He probably takes a certain level of joy in it. But when it comes to actually using his magic to mentally dominate people, because of what happened to him on his homeworld, he doesn't take any joy and is actually very reluctant to do it to others. He only does it to Garruk when he realizes that Garruk is also a planeswalker and will hound him throughout the multiverse. If Garruk had not admitted he was a planeswalker and would hunt Oko to the ends of the universe, Oko would have actually just planeswalked away from Garruk. That's his first response. If things aren't working for Oko, he just goes, I'm outie 2000, and just bounces out. So there is that kind of dual nature where he doesn't mind hurting people, but he also is against doing what was done to him. So an interesting contrast there. Now, what's the worst part about being a planeswalker for Oko? To Oko, it would be feeling alone in the multiverse. He has yet to learn it doesn't have to be this way. See his trust issues above. And this makes perfect sense. If you were betrayed by your own people, by the nobility of your own people, by your own father, you are going to have genuine trust issues, and that is going to extend to everybody. If you can't trust your own flesh and blood, how can you trust people you've just met? And when you run away from every problem, you're obviously not going to be building up friendships. You're going to be moving from plane to plane. Things are going to be changing in that nature. So he is broken. And like I said, he hasn't grown up. He hasn't matured. And him making friends, most likely other planeswalkers who can understand him to a degree, will significantly impact his character, I imagine. And the final question in the interview is, what do you think has been the biggest challenge in Oko's life so far? How did he, or how is he working to, overcome it? I think probably the issues he faced on his home plane. They've shaped his life to this point, and it will probably be some time before he finds the courage to trust anyone enough to grow beyond those experiences, if ever. Now, for me, this is really well done. The way that they've laid this out, actually, you can understand why Oko is what he is. Now, I've shifted up the artwork to the other piece of artwork we have here. You can see that Oko identifies strongly with thorns and vine magic, right? This is illustrated in numerous ways. As I said, when we went over his outfit, you can see his crown of thorns. It's harder to see the pauldrons on his outfit that have thorns coming up off them, but you can see him in a thorny glade here. More than likely, the thorny vines that are reaching out are actually being created by his magic. You can see the magic is showing blue, green, and black magic waves. Black magic waves tend to be represented a lot of the time, at least in recent times, with a more of a purple hue, because black magic is a little harder to represent. Now, you'll also notice that these magical vines that are coming out, they are not interwoven. They are disparate elements, almost in a way, to me, showing that Oko hasn't really found how to meld these magics. He knows how to unleash them all at once, but he doesn't know how to intertwine them. So to me, this artwork is showing him growing these vines out, and you can see that smug look. You can see the smug look on his face as he's firing this magic out, and the stance of his body. It has a very rock star pose. Again, I will reiterate my point that I feel like he looks like a combination between a Japanese K-pop, not Japanese, you can't be a Japanese Korean pop star, a Korean pop star, and an 80s hairband star. He's literally wearing leather pants that are so low, you can almost see his special van, if you know what I'm saying. So Oko is an interesting character. I like that they fleshed his character out enough that we can see growth. We kind of, somewhat to a degree, know where his character is going to go in terms of at some point he's probably going to trust and make friends. But the question is, who will he make friends with? Will he make friends with people from the Gatewatch and eventually end up on the side of good? Or will he make friends with villains and end up on the side of evil? Or is there some other possible alternative? Either way, overall, I think there's a lot of potential for this Planeswalker, and I look forward to learning more about him by reading that upcoming novel. This effort that they've put into making this character, it's gone a long way for me to restore my faith in Wizards' possibility of good storytelling. Admittedly, the War of the Spark book was not a good book, but the writing for this upcoming book actually seems very solid. And this Planeswalker, unlike Planeswalkers like Vivian, have actually been given more flesh and more life to them. When they created the Vivian Planeswalker, they just went, she uses a bow that summons spirit animals and she's from a plane Bolus destroyed. And that was it. So that covers everything that I have to say about Oko, my friends. Now, I want to let you know, for those of you who haven't already heard the word, we have moved the evening live streams over to my second channel, Hatcher. So I invite you to come on over to my Hatcher channel and hang out tonight. We're going to be having a fantastic live stream. I will link the channel in the description and again at the end of this video too. I want to thank my patrons and channel members for supporting what I do. Genuinely appreciate that a lot. And we are welcoming aboard 2 new members. One is a channel member, Guitar Dude 2020, and the other is a new patron, and that is Vaughn Winford Mitchell. My thanks to both of you for joining up. I appreciate the support. And remember,
together, we are the 6 color of magic.